You know that feeling when you're looking for a shortcut? Like, to understanding something really profound.
Oh, definitely.
Like, there's some ancient wisdom that could just click, and make sense of things without, wading through tons of research.
Mhm.
Ever get that itch?
Absolutely. And well, that's precisely the kind of intellectual treasure hunt we're getting into today.
Okay.
We're going deep into the Kybalion. Is this text that just hums with echoes of ancient Egypt and Greece.
Right?
It's a philosophy tied to the mysterious three initiates and fascinatingly linked to the legendary Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great.
Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, the name alone sounds like hidden knowledge, doesn't it?
Mhm.
So what exactly is in the Kybalion that's got us hooked?
Well, at its heart, it's really a distillation of core Hermetic doctrines, a body of wisdom that for centuries was mainly shared directly, from lip to ear.
Ah, okay, so not widely written down at first.
Exactly. Think of it like fundamental principles, but presented as maxims and axioms, kind of crafted for those who were, let's say, ready to really delve into Hermetic thought rather than just being broadcast everywhere.
Right, like unlocking a kind of secret code of understanding. So, our goal today then is to decipher some of that for you listening, yeah? What's the big picture we're hoping to illuminate?
Well, our mission really is to explore these ideas, which can seem pretty esoteric at first glance,
Mhm.
and reveal how they surprisingly weave through various religions and philosophies across history.
Mhm.
The Kybalion itself kind of suggests it acts as a great reconciler.
A reconciler.
Yeah, and that's what we're sort of aiming to unpack here.
A reconciler of ancient wisdom. I like that. Okay, so for you listening, why tune into this deep dive? What's the payoff here?
Think of this as maybe a focused exploration. It can give you a surprisingly efficient way to grasp some really fundamental concepts about how reality might, well,
Mm.
how it might work. We're trying to extract what feels most potent and relevant today, aiming to spark, hopefully, some new ways of seeing things without getting bogged down in overly academic or, obscure language.
All right, sounds good. Let's get into the nuts and bolts then. The Kybalion lays out 7 fundamental Hermetic principles. These are the foundational ideas, right? Can you list them out for us?
They are indeed these seven principles. They form the very structure of the philosophy. So you've got
Yeah.
the principle of mentalism,
Okay.
the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and finally, the principle of gender.
Okay, 7. Let's start with mentalism. That sounds like it puts a lot of weight on the mind, obviously. What's the key idea there?
Yeah, it really does. The core axiom of mentalism is, well, it's powerful.
Yeah.
The all is mind, the universe is mental.
Whoa, okay.
This basically proposes that the ultimate reality, the substance underneath everything, is essentially mind
Mhm.
and everything we perceive. It's a mental creation originating from this the all.
So when I look around, I'm essentially seeing thoughts made manifest. Is that too simple?
In a profound sense, yeah, that's the direction. The Kybalion suggests the entire universe exists within the mind of the all,
Right.
and it's within that vast mental landscape that we too live and move and have our being, as the text puts it.
Hmm.
This principle, if you really sit with it, um, it can offer some intriguing ways to think about phenomena that often baffle us, like certain mental or psychic experiences.
That is mind bending. Okay, next up, correspondence. The phrase as above, so below springs to mind immediately. Is that basically it?
Exactly. That's the core of it. The full axiom is as above, so below, as below, so above.
Right.
This principle speaks to a fundamental harmony, an analogy that exists between different planes of reality, the physical, the mental, the spiritual. It's about recognizing patterns repeating themselves across these different scales.
Can you give us a practical way to kind of wrap our heads around that?
Sure, the Kybalion uses this image, like understanding something as grand as an archangel by looking closely at something as tiny as a monad.
Okay.
It suggests a mirroring at different levels of existence. Or think about, say, an astronomer. They can figure out how distant suns work by observing physics right here on Earth, right?
Yeah, true.
It's about using what we understand on one level to gain insights into another, moving from the known to the unknown.
Okay. I'm starting to see how that could be a really powerful way to think. Then there's vibration that sounds like more than just a feeling, right?
Oh, much more. The axiom here is nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates.
Huh.
And this principle, it actually lines up remarkably well with modern science, especially at the subatomic level. It states that the fundamental difference between all manifestations, matter energy, mind, even spirit, it all comes down to their varying rates of vibration.
So everything is just vibrating, but in different speeds. Is that it?
Precisely. You've got this whole spectrum. From the incredibly high, fast vibrations of pure spirit, the all the way down to the slowest, densest vibrations we perceive as, solid matter.
Wow.
And the Hermetic understanding goes further. It suggests that by consciously influencing our mental vibrations, we can affect not just our own state of mind, but potentially even influence the world around us.
Okay, that connects nicely, I think, to polarity. The axiom starts everything is dual. This feels like it's getting at opposites.
That's the essence, yeah. The full axiom is quite a mouthful.
Hmm.
Everything is
Yeah.
dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites.
Yeah.
Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled.
Okay, whoa. That is a lot. Can you boil down the core takeaway for us?
Yeah. Essentially, what we often perceive as stark opposites, they're
Okay.
really just two ends of the same spectrum.
Ah.
They differ in degree, not in fundamental nature. Think about hot and cold, they seem opposite, right?
Yeah.
But they're just different levels of heat energy, different vibrations. The same applies to light and darkness, large and small, or even complex things like love and hate.
So it's more like a dimmer switch than an on off switch, a sliding scale.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And here's a really key insight from the Hermetic perspective. They taught that you can mentally transmute vibrations along this scale.
Transmute, like change them.
Yes. So if you're experiencing a negative emotion, say hate or fear, you can consciously shift your mental vibration towards the opposite, more positive pole, like love or courage, by changing your focus, your mental polarity.
Interesting. Okay, next principle rhythm. Everything flows out and in. This sounds like cycles we see everywhere in nature and life.
That's spot on. The axiom captures it perfectly. Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates.
So life has this built in ebb and flow, like a pendulum just swinging back and forth between the poles we just talked about.
Precisely. You see it absolutely everywhere. The cycles of day and night, the seasons changing, the rise and fall of nations, empires,
Hmm.
and even in our own personal lives. Our moods, our energy levels, periods of enthusiasm followed by maybe dips. There's this constant measured swing between the two poles established by that principle of polarity.
Okay, but is there a way to not be so tossed around by those swings, especially the downswings, the negative ones?
Well, this is where the Hermetic concept of the law of neutralization comes into play.
The law of mutualization.
Yeah, the idea is that by elevating your consciousness, by achieving a higher mental plane, you can learn to observe this pendulum swing happening on the lower levels without being unconsciously swept away by it.
So finding a kind of stability above the fray.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a higher perspective, finding a point of relative stillness amidst all the fluctuations, not stopping the rhythm, but not being controlled by it.
Got it. Okay, principle 6, cause and effect. This one feels like it should be pretty straightforward, doesn't it?
On the surface, yeah, it seems simple. The axiom is every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes law.
Okay. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. So no real accidents, just a chain of events we might not fully grasp.
That's exactly the Hermetic perspective.
Yeah.
What we often call luck or chance or coincidence is simply the result of causes that are maybe too complex or too hidden or too far removed from our immediate perception for us to trace back.
Right.
Everything is seen as interconnected within this vast universal web of cause and effect, and it all ultimately originates from the all.
But what about our own choices then? Where does free will fit into this apparently deterministic picture if everything is cause and effect?
That's a great question. Hermetics suggests that while we're always operating within the framework of universal laws, you can't break them by gaining understanding of these laws, especially the higher ones.
Hmm.
We can move from being, let's say, unconsciously driven by lower causes like puppets on strings to consciously creating effects on our own plane of existence.
So more agency.
Yes. Think of it like moving from being a pawn in the game of life, just reacting, to becoming a player, making strategic moves. You're still playing by the rules of the universe, but you're playing consciously, working with the laws,
Hmm.
rather than just being pushed around by them.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, we have the seventh principle, gender. The axiom says gender is in everything. Now, that word gender can sound a bit confusing in today's context.
Right, and it's really crucial to understand this isn't about biological sex or the social constructs we often associate with the word gender today.
Okay, so what is it about then? The axiom is gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes.
Exactly. These masculine and feminine principles are seen as fundamental universal energies or polarities inherent in all of creation on every level.
Can you give an analogy?
Sure. Think about something like electricity. You need both the positive and negative charges for energy to flow and create anything, right?
Right.
And importantly, the so-called negative pole isn't passive or inferior, it's actually considered generative, the source from which new forms emerge. Both are essential and complementary.
Okay, and how does this apply on the mental plane in our minds?
Well, on the mental plane, the masculine principle is associated with the active aspect, things like will, focused intention, the projection of mental energy outwards, setting out a thought, having an impulse.
Okay.
The feminine principle is more the receptive, nurturing aspect. It's like the mental womb where ideas are received, conceived, incubated, developed, and eventually brought to fruition.
Ah, I see.
So both are absolutely essential and constantly interacting in the process of thinking and creating anything mentally. You have an idea, maybe masculine impulse, and then you nurture it, develop it, let it grow within your mind. Feminine process. It's this interplay.
So, yeah, grasping these principles isn't just like an intellectual exercise. The Kybalion talks about something called mental transmutation, right? How does that tie into all this?
Exactly. Mental transmutation is really the practical application of these Hermetic principles, especially linking back to mentalism, vibration, and polarity.
Okay.
The axiom puts it clearly. Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration. True Hermetic transmutation is a mental art.
So it's basically saying we have the power to change our own mental landscape, our states of mind, almost like uh, the alchemist trying to change lead into gold, but mentally.
That's a really powerful analogy, actually.
Okay.
Yes, it suggests that through focused mental effort, using our will and attention, we can consciously alter our mental states, shift out of negative patterns, and even influence our experience of reality by deliberately changing our own vibrational frequency.
Can you maybe give a concrete example? How might someone use mental transmutation in, say, everyday life?
Okay, let's take someone struggling with maybe persistent fear or anxiety about something.
Okay.
Understanding the principle of polarity, they'd recognize fear and courage as two poles of the same thing, just different degrees of vibration.
Right.
Using mental transmutation, they could consciously withdraw attention from the fear pole and focus their will, that masculine principle, on the opposite pole, courage. They'd mentally cultivate the feeling of courage, hold that vibration, engaging the feminine receptive aspect for the desired state. Over time, this practice could literally shift their dominant mental vibration away from fear and towards courage.
So it's about intentionally directing your mental energy and focus.
Exactly. It's an active internal process, a mental art, as the axiom says.
That definitely makes it much more tangible. Now, all of this seems to keep pointing back to this core concept of the all. What exactly is the all in Hermetic philosophy? It sounds huge.
It is. The all is presented as the ultimate fundamental reality, the substantial reality that underlies everything we perceive in this universe of time, space, and constant change. It's the source, the ground of being from which all existence emanates.
And what are its defining characteristics? How do they describe the all?
Well, the key attributes are that the all must be, by definition, all that really is.
Hmm.
It has to be absolutely infinite without beginning or end in time, boundless in space, and unlimited in power.
Infinite. Okay.
And crucially, it must also be immutable, unchanging in its essential nature. Because if the all could change, that would imply something outside of it causing the change, right? Which contradicts the definition of it being all.
Got it. So the universe we experience, which is constantly changing, evolving,
Yeah,
that can't be the all itself then.
precisely. The finite, conditioned, and ever evolving universe cannot logically be the infinite and unchanging the all. However,
Yes.
since the all is all that truly is, the universe must, in some way, be a manifestation of it. It has to exist within the all.
Okay, so how does the all bring this universe into being according to this philosophy?
The Kybalion posits that the all creates the universe through a mental process. Think about it. There's nothing outside of the all for it to use as material. Right.
because it's all.
And it can't divide or reproduce itself like a physical thing. So the only way it can create is mentally within itself. Similar, perhaps, to how we create thoughts and entire worlds within our own minds.
So the entire cosmos is like a thought or a sustained mental creation in the mind of the all.
In a very profound sense, yes. Just as you can conceive of characters, places, entire worlds within your imagination, the all projects countless universes within its infinite mind. The scale, obviously, is just incomprehensible to our finite minds.
But, okay, here's a question. If it's all mental, is it real? Is this universe real? Or is it just an illusion?
That's the crux of the divine paradox we'll get to. From the absolute perspective of the all, perhaps the universe is like an illusion, a temporary creation.
All
But
right.
But for us, the finite minds within that mental creation, the universe is undeniably real. Its laws are real, our experiences are real.
So if it's all mental, are the laws of physics, the rules of the universe, just suggestions then? Can we just ignore them?
Not at all. The Kybalion is very clear on this.
Hmm.
Even though the universe is mental in its fundamental nature, its laws, the Hermetic principles, physical laws, etc., are absolutely real and consistent within that framework. They are the iron laws governing the mental creation.
Okay.
Think of the rules within a very vivid dream. While the dream world itself is a mental construct, the rules within that dream feel completely real and binding while you're experiencing it, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely do. And how does the all relate to this mental universe it creates? Is it like a distant creator separate from it or
The Hermetic understanding is actually quite nuanced. It suggests the all is both transcendent, meaning it exists beyond and above the universe, is not limited to it,
okay.
and immanent, meaning it is present within every single part, every particle, every being, every aspect of the universe. It pervades its creation.
Transcendent and immanent. Can you give an analogy for that?
The text sometimes uses the analogy of a great author or playwright like Shakespeare. Shakespeare is immanent in his characters. Hamlet and Juliet, he gives them their life and reality within the play.
Mm.
But Shakespeare himself also exists entirely outside of and beyond the play. He's not identical to Hamlet, even though Hamlet is, in a sense, a manifestation of Shakespeare's mind. The all is similarly within everything, yet infinitely more than everything.
That's actually a really helpful way to visualize it. Okay, shifting slightly. We hear a lot about evolution, obviously, but the Kybalion talks about evolution too. What's that in this Hermetic context?
Right. In Hermetic thought, cosmic evolution and involution are seen as two sides of a grand cyclical process, like a cosmic breath, all unfolding within the mind of the all.
Okay, so what's involution?
Involution is the initial phase. It's where the all becomes, in a sense, involved or immersed in its creation. It's like the outflowing breath projecting its essence, its energy into the potentiality that becomes the manifest universe. Think of maybe an artist becoming completely absorbed, pouring themselves into their masterpiece.
Okay, getting involved in the creation. And evolution is the return journey then.
Yes, exactly. Evolution is the subsequent unfolding or the indrawing breath.
Mm.
It's where the initially unindividualized energy starts to coalesce into distinct units of life. These units then gradually evolve, moving up through the physical, then the mental, and finally the spiritual planes.
With a goal.
With the ultimate aim, yes, of returning to the source, back to the all, but with greatly increased consciousness and self awareness gained through the whole journey.
So it's this massive cosmic cycle, an outward pouring forth of creation and then an inward gathering back.
That's the essence of the Hermetic cosmological view, yeah. They even use terms like meditation and contemplation to describe the all's role in this whole process, suggesting it's a continuous act of divine thought or attention that sustains the universe's existence.
Wow. Okay, this brings us to what the Kybalion calls the divine paradox. You mentioned it earlier. What's the key to understanding that? It sounds, well, paradoxical.
It is. The divine paradox essentially highlights this seemingly contradictory truth. While the universe is ultimately unreal or illusory when compared to the absolute, unchanging reality of the all,
Uh-huh.
it must nevertheless be treated as fully real by those of us who are experiencing life within it.
So we shouldn't just dismiss the challenges, the joys, the laws of life just because, oh, it's all mental anyway.
Precisely, that's seen as a path of folly. The Kybalion warns against ignoring the laws of the universe or acting as if they don't apply simply because you grasp the deeper mental nature of reality.
So what's the wise approach?
True wisdom, according to this teaching, lies in understanding the relative nature of the universe and simultaneously using its laws constructively. Use the principles vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect to facilitate your growth, your evolution, your progress upwards,
Right.
while always keeping in mind that higher truth, the ultimate reality of the all. It's about navigating the dream skillfully with awareness, not denying the dream itself while you're still in it.
Okay, wow. This has been a genuinely deep dive into some incredibly profound and sometimes complex ideas. If you had to boil it down, what's the one core message you'd really want to leave with everyone listening today?
Gosh, one core message. I think it's that the Kybalion offers this coherent, powerful framework. It suggests that reality is fundamentally mental, and it's governed by these seven interconnected principles. And crucially, these aren't just abstract ideas. They have real, practical implications for how we perceive and interact with the world, and perhaps most importantly, with ourselves.
So, thinking about those implications, if we really start to internalize this idea, seeing the universe as mental, how might that actually shift our perspective on our own lives, our potential?
Well, consider it. Right. If reality is, at some level, mental and therefore potentially malleable through mental influence,
Hmm.
what does that suggest about the power of your own thoughts, your focus, your intentions, your ability to shape your experience?
Hmm.
It really invites you, the listener, to ponder the nature of your own consciousness.
Yeah.
What is it? And what's its role in this vast mental cosmos? It could be quite transformative.
Definitely some serious food for thought there. If listeners are intrigued and want to explore the Kybalion and maybe the broader Hermetic philosophy further, where would you suggest they start?
Well, obviously, seeking out the text, the Kybalion itself, is the first step. Look for reputable editions, maybe some with helpful commentary. Beyond that, there's a rich history and a lot of related concepts within Hermeticism and Western esotericism to explore. We really encourage you to seek out reliable sources and continue your own journey of discovery.
Fantastic advice. Thank you so much for taking this really fascinating deep dive with me today. I know I've definitely had more than a few aha moments myself.
My pleasure. It's always stimulating to discuss these ideas.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us. Until our next exploration, keep questioning, keep learning.